When I received Trails of Cold Steel 3, I was excited to finally try it, but I also couldn't help but have some concerns. I've seen fans of the series stressing that this game needs to be at least played from the start of Cold Steel, which meant playing 2 really big, potentially 100-hour-long JRPGs before the third one that I was really interested in. Many also recommend adding the Trails of the Sky trilogy as well, as it's placed before the Cold Steel series on the timeline, as well as the Crossbell Arc games that haven't been localized but add context to some events, and altogether felt like a huge, complicated time sink that I wanted to do someday but couldn't feasibly think of when I could do so. So the code I received for 3 quickly became my excuse to just jump into the series. And while I was going against a lot of things that people who know a lot about the series had said, I ended up ultimately being glad I did, as I'm enjoying the game and it cemented my interest in the series as a whole. While I am enjoying my time with it, I'm about 80 hours in on the final chapter and finally feeling like I have a better understanding of why some fans recommend only playing from the start. And I think I found there are pros and cons to both the way I played and the way others recommend that I wish I knew better before I played, despite the fact I'm fully happy with my own decision of how I wanted to play. So to try and simplify both ideas from my perspective as a new fan of the series thanks to 3, here's some reasons you should and shouldn't start with Trails of Cold Steel 3 to help you make this decision for yourself. The good thing about Trails of Cold Steel 3 for new fans is that thanks to the characters growing up a little since their school days in 1 and 2, 3 is a bit of a turning point as protagonist and student Rein Schwarzer becomes the teacher in this entry of the series, and the start of his new journey as a teacher makes a great continuation to his character development as well as a great jumping in point for new fans. 3 starts in a new school, the branch campus of the series' school Thorvs that Rein will work at, and this is a school with mostly new characters that are the first ones you spend significant time with in the game, and this made me feel much more comfortable being in the third game of a world I wasn't familiar with, and watching the new Class 7 start their new school life and find out more about this world too makes it easy to connect with their side of the story. Cold Steel 3 does have a lot of throwbacks with old characters coming in and out constantly, but meeting Rein's old classmates from 1 and 2's Class 7 feels good this way as well. Throughout 3, it has Rein give the right amount of excitement and friendly banter with his old comrades that help us understand his relationship with each one, while the reaction in the new Class 7 leans closer to a newcomer's perspective that I found myself often relating to and also had some enjoyable humor. So these new characters do a lot for the new player while still being interesting on their own too. And for any throwbacks that don't make sense, Trails' backstory feature is pretty comprehensive in catching the player up on anything that doesn't make sense, and I had a lot of cool experiences where something I just read about for fun was mentioned in the story by coincidence after I'd read about it. So if you have any concerns due to the game's tendency to reference all parts of its story, this is a great way to catch up for anything that isn't detailed directly. Aside from its new characters featured making things feel more familiar and relatable to me as a new player, another reason starting from 3 is a good idea in my opinion is simply because it's newer. I'm sure I'm not alone in enjoying jumping into unfamiliar series with its newest title just because the visuals and quality of life features will be that little bit better, and Trails has helped me discover that along with that, if I don't personally have a connection with the series yet, I'm unlikely to jump into its older games. I'd been interested in Trails' trailers for Cold Steel 1 and 2 before and have even mentioned them in a video, but the one that excited me most was 3, and now that it's acquainted me with the series, I feel much more likely to actually go back and play its old games at some point. So with that in mind, I think it's important to go with what appeals to you most, and if that happens to be 3 as well, I'd say go for it rather than have the dauntingness have you skip the series completely. The Trails games are big, so I can understand people's want to jump into it the right way, but 3 really does make that easier for fans who prefer modern-looking JRPGs, while still showing players how the story has developed since the first 2 games through its new characters and features. Ultimately, how you start is up to you, but I certainly don't regret jumping in where I did, and I'm glad 3 gave me the push I needed to finally try the series. Although I'm happy with my own decision to start with Trails of Cold Steel 3 as a player who prefers more modern experiences, it's important to mention there are certain types of people who I think wouldn't enjoy this, and may even have regrets if they did, as skipping multiple games in a series isn't exactly for everyone. With that in mind, I did want to highlight that side too, as I now understand it more, and it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're leaning either way. When I hadn't played Trails yet, plenty of people in my comments section and otherwise had explained to me why the previous arcs are so important to the story, but as someone looking from the outside, it always felt a little complicated. From what I understand now, the multiple Trails games are divided by the regions they revolve around rather than just being different stories. Trails of Cold Steel is just the arc that revolves around the Kingdom of Erebonia, but the Kingdom of Liberl from the Trails of the Sky trilogy and the Crossbell State from the unlocalized Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki games are referenced and involved many times in 3's story, and simply put, having knowledge of these would be a different experience, and if you get into the series like I am, might also save you playing 3 again later to have that more informed second playthrough. As I said in the should part of this video, 3's backstory feature can really fill in a lot of these blanks for people like myself who are okay with that route, but if you're a person who is stricter on spoilers, I would wholeheartedly suggest starting at least from Cold Steel 1 or Trails in the Sky if you want to know everything. 3 is the continuation of the Erebonia story and isn't shy about revealing some big moments from the first 2 games, along with it probably spoiling what happens in other games too, and while I don't mind at this point, it means the full experience of trying the older games with a clean mind isn't an experience I can have, but I do plan to combat that as best as I can by putting some distance between the next one I decide to try after I finish 3. But if you're still cool with jumping in with 3 at that point, the only other thing to keep in mind is both the length of 3 and all the others if you do decide to go back in the series. As I said, I'm 80 hours into my playthrough of 3 and only just on the final chapter, and assuming the others follow a slower, detail-filled pacing too, it's up to you if you want to start now and save some time but have to read up on things that you've missed, or put the time in and be rewarded with a very good understanding of Trails' rich and political world. With just Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, that could be 200 hours depending on your pace, and as games I plan to go back and play, I still haven't fully gotten rid of the daunting time sink this series is, but at least I now have purpose for when I end up doing it. To get the most out of your time, playing from the start to the current game is probably best, but if you're limited on time and say daunted by also the middle 2 games, Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki, that haven't been localized, I'd say do what seems best for you, as trying the series if you're interested I think is most important above all else. This is a decision that would depend a lot on individual playstyles, and my main message from this video is just to consider it a little before you go in and then go with whatever feels right for you. While I was worried about my own decision to skip all the lore and past games that I still need to catch up on, Trails of Cold Steel 3 has pleasantly surprised me with the depth of its friendships, politics, and the way the world seems to have grown, and I might not have found that out for a long time without just trying it. So as I keep going with my playthrough, I hope more people continue to discover the series, whether from the 3rd Cold Steel game, the first one, or even from Trails in the Sky, to discover this deep JRPG world that really does have a rich story to tell. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below where you started in the Trails series and if you agree with me or not about people starting from the 3rd game. I'm just a new player in the series and this is what worked for me, but I did want to talk about it a little as the dauntingness of the series really did make me almost miss it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments and I look forward to reading them. You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below, and until next time, thank you, bye!